It was a cold, moonless night in the city. The kind of night where even the wind seemed to whisper secrets as it slipped through the narrow alleys and rusted fire escapes. The streets were half empty, except for the occasional rumble of a distant car or the sharp sound of heels clacking on pavement. The city lights blinked in dull amber and pale blue, casting a tired glow on the wet asphalt. Somewhere in the silence, a man lay broken, hidden in plain sight. His name was Amir. Once, he had been someone, a father, a husband, a man with calloused hands and a proud smile. Now he was just another forgotten figure hunched against the wall of an abandoned building, barely shielded by the ragged coat wrapped tightly around his trembling body. His face was bruised and his left leg bent awkwardly beneath him. His fingers were scraped raw from the fall. Pain radiated through his spine, and every breath felt like a cruel punishment. It had started earlier that day. Amir had wandered the streets looking for food, his stomach gnawing at itself. He'd knocked on the back door of a restaurant, hoping for scraps. The manager, annoyed by the interruption, shoved him away. Amir stumbled, slipped, and hit the pavement hard. He didn't realize until hours later, when he tried to stand again, that something was wrong with his back. And now, at midnight, he was stuck, alone. He tried to move again. Pain screamed up his spine, and he collapsed with a choked cry. His voice, hoarse and weak, barely echoed against the alley walls. He looked up at the night sky, the only witness to his suffering, and whispered, "Help." Minutes passed. Then an hour. He was too weak to shout, but he kept trying, gasping out soft pleas whenever he heard footsteps nearby. A couple walked past on the sidewalk, laughing about something. Amir raised his hand, fingers shaking. "Please," he murmured. The woman glanced at him, pulling her coat tighter. Her partner looked the other way. Neither stopped. A group of young men in hoodies came next. Loud voices, cigarette smoke. One of them noticed Amir and nudged his friend. "Yo, check that guy out." They snickered. One pulled out his phone, filming for a moment. "City zombies," he joked. Then they walked away, the laughter fading behind them. Amir's head dropped back against the wall. He didn't have the strength to cry, but his eyes welled up. Not from the pain in his back, but from something worse, the pain of being invisible. He hadn't always been like this. 2 years ago, he lived in a modest apartment on the east side of the city. He worked as a mechanic at a small garage, fixing engines with skilled hands. He wasn't rich, but he had enough. Enough to buy his daughter ice cream on Saturdays. Enough to take his wife out for late-night tea when she couldn't sleep. His daughter, Aisha, had the brightest smile he'd ever seen. Then came the accident. One rainy morning, they were driving to school. Amir turned to tell Aisha a joke. In the split second he looked away, a truck sped through a red light. The crash was instant. Aisha died on impact. Amir survived with only a few scratches and a broken soul. His wife, consumed by grief, couldn't bear to stay. Within a month, she was gone. She left a note. No words of blame, just sorrow. Amir didn't blame her. He blamed himself. He stopped going to work. He stopped eating. The rent fell behind. One day, he came home to find his belongings piled on the curb. He didn't argue. He just walked away. Since then, the city had become a blur of empty nights and endless streets. He'd slept under bridges, in bus shelters, behind dumpsters. Some nights he found warmth in the corner of a shelter, other nights he fought for a dry patch of cardboard. People passed him every day. Most didn't look. Some did, but their eyes were hard, indifferent. Tonight felt worse. The pain in his body was spreading deeper than before. His legs felt cold, almost numb. Something was wrong, he could feel it. And yet, The world moved on. At 12:17 a.m., a man in a suit walked by, talking loudly on his phone. Amir tried to lift his head. "Sir, help." The man paused, looked down, then turned and kept walking. Around 12:30, a delivery driver on a scooter stopped at the light. He glanced toward the alley and saw Amir slumped by the wall. He looked for a second too long, almost considering it. Then the light turned green. He drove away. By now, Amir's lips were cracked. His hands trembled. His body curled tighter, instinctively trying to protect itself from the cold. Another hour passed. The city was quieter now. Most people had gone home. Most lights were off. Only the broken, the forgotten, and the lost remained awake. At 1:42 a.m., a small dog padded into the alley and sniffed at Amir's hand. He smiled faintly. "Hey, little one," he whispered. The dog nudged his arm, but, sensing something unfamiliar, backed away and disappeared into the shadows. That moment of gentle contact almost made him weep. He looked up at the stars. Those same stars he used to point out to Aisha when they walked home from the park. She used to ask, "Papa, do stars cry when they see sad people?" He'd laugh in, ruffling her hair. "Maybe, sweetie. Maybe that's why they twinkle." Now, staring at the silent sky, he whispered, "I hope you're watching. I hope you see me." His eyes closed, just for a moment, just to rest. Then a sudden pain in his chest jerked him awake. He coughed violently, the sound echoing down the empty street. "Please," he cried again, louder this time. "Please." But no one came. 2 teenagers on bikes zipped by. One of them shouted, "Get a job, old man," and they vanished around the corner. Time blurred. His thoughts drifted. He thought he saw Aisha standing across the street, smiling. Then she was gone. Just a memory. Just a ghost. At 2:15 a.m., he began to mumble to himself, half memories, half hallucinations. "Don't forget her lunch. She likes the red box. Tell Layla I fixed the sink. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault." He wasn't sure how much longer he could hold on. The world was dark and wide and cold, and he was so small in it. By 3 a.m., even the silence seemed to give up. His voice gave out completely. No more cries, only the sound of shallow breathing, weak, irregular. He thought, maybe this is it. Maybe this is how it ends, not with noise, not with anyone noticing, but in the quiet, with no one watching. He didn't even mind anymore. The pain was fading. Everything felt far away, light, peaceful, even, and just before his eyes shut for what he thought would be the last time, a single tear slipped down his cheek. Not for the pain, not for the people who didn't stop. But for the little girl with the star-bright smile, and a promise he'd never kept. The city didn't stop for anyone. Not for the broken, not for the grieving, and certainly not for a man lying near death in a forgotten alley. The traffic returned with the morning. Horns blared. Exhaust fumes rolled through the streets like breath from a beast. Somewhere, a child laughed while skipping to school. Somewhere else, someone cried inside a silent apartment. But in the alley, time stood still. Amir was slipping deeper into unconsciousness. His body, cold and battered, rested against the rough brick wall. The pain in his back had dulled into something distant. His fingers barely twitched now, and his lips had gone pale. But inside his mind, he was somewhere else entirely, a place stitched together by guilt and memory. He was back in his old apartment, warm and alive. The curtains danced in the breeze as sunlight streamed through the windows. The smell of cardamom tea floated through the air. His wife, Layla, hummed softly as she prepared breakfast. She was wearing his favorite pale blue scarf, the one he had gifted her on their 5th anniversary. At the dining table sat their daughter, Aisha, giggling as she tried to stack her toast slices like blocks. "Papa, look," she shouted, beaming. With pride, Amir laughed, wiping grease from his hands after returning from the garage. "That's an engineering masterpiece, my little genius." Layla rolled her eyes playfully. "You're encouraging her weird ideas again. She's going to be a builder." "Or an astronaut," Amir said with pride, lifting Aisha into the air. "Aisha the Great." The laughter was real. The joy was real. Until it WS and single quotes D. The images blurred. The sunlight dimmed. Suddenly, it was raining. Windshield wipers thumped rhythmically. Amir's hands gripped the steering wheel as Layla reached back to hand Aisha her school bag. Amir turned, smiling. Just for a second. That second was all it took. A scream. The shattering of glass. The world turned upside down. And then, silence. Amir groaned in his sleep. A soft whimper escaped his lips. His fingers curled slightly, as if trying to hold on to something. Reality returned in fragments. He was no longer in a cozy kitchen. No longer a father holding a giggling girl. He was in a cold alley, spine possibly fractured, lips dry and blue, heartbeat slow and irregular. But the memories wouldn't stop. He remembered the hospital. Aisha's tiny body wrapped in a white sheet. He had sat in the hallway for hours, staring at the floor, while doctors and nurses passed him like ghosts. Layla stood beside him, her hand trembling in his, saying nothing, not crying, not speaking, just silence. The silence of something broken beyond words. They buried Aisha 3 days later. Rain fell hard on the cemetery that morning. Amir held the umbrella over Layla's head, but she didn't seem to feel the water or notice the mud soaking her shoes. That night, they sat in the dark, hands touching but disconnected. Layla finally turned to him and whispered, "I know it wasn't your fault, but I can't breathe here anymore." She left 2 days later. She kissed his forehead, folded her clothes, and was gone. After that, life became a slow collapse. Amir returned to work for a while, but the machine sounded too loud. The clanking tools reminded him of Aisha's laugh. Customers' voices turned into noise. One day, he just walked out of the garage and never went back. Bills piled up. He started drinking, not much at first, but just enough to forget what day it was. Friends tried to reach him, but he ignored the messages. He couldn't bear to hear sympathy. He didn't want pity. He wanted his little girl. Eventually, the landlord came with 2 policemen. Amir packed a small bag and walked out without a fight. From that day, the city became his home. Benches, bus stops, construction sites. Occasionally, a shelter bed when the line wasn't too long. But even shelters felt like traps. No privacy. No peace, sometimes violent, sometimes dangerous. And no one there knew who Amir used to be. Back in the alley, another hour passed. Morning traffic built up. Delivery vans, joggers, office workers with earbuds in. Someone walked past with a coffee, glanced into the alley for a moment, saw Amir, then shook their head and kept going. To them, he was just another homeless man. Another consequence of a harsh world. No one saw the father. No one saw the man who once read bedtime stories with silly voices or fixed bicycles for neighborhood kids for free. No one knew that his laughter once filled rooms. No one knew he was once loved deeply. Now he was invisible, but not entirely. Around 7:45 a.m., a nurse named Maya stepped off the early bus a few blocks away. Her night shift at the hospital had been brutal. 3 emergency surgeries, 1 elderly patient lost to a heart attack, and a new nurse who cried twice before midnight. Maya, tired and emotionally drained, walked slower than usual. Her shoulder ached from carrying her heavy tote bag. She was thinking about nothing in particular, maybe breakfast, maybe sleep, when a flicker of movement in the alley caught her eye. She stopped. At first, She thought it was trash or an animal. But some instinct made her step closer, and then she saw him, a man, slumped, not moving, his skin a sickly gray, lips pale, fingertips bruised. She dropped her bag and ran toward him. "Sir? Hey, sir." No response. She touched his neck. A pulse, faint. Oh no. Her training kicked in. She pulled out her phone and dialed emergency services. "Yes, I have a man. He's unresponsive. Breathing shallow. Possibly hypothermic and injured. I think he's been here all night." As she waited, she knelt beside him and whispered softly, "I'm here now. You're not alone. Help is coming." Amir didn't hear her voice clearly, but somewhere, in the haze of fading thought, he sensed something. Warmth. A hand on his, a voice that didn't mock or ignore, but cared. Back in his drifting mind, Amir saw Aisha again. She stood by a riverbank, smiling brightly. "Papa," she sighed, "it's okay to rest." He hesitated. Then Aisha turned and pointed. In the distance, Layla was standing under a tree, holding something in her arms. A baby? Amir took a step forward, then paused. He looked back. Behind him, in the mist, he saw Maya. Kneeling, crying, begging, double quote, "Stay with me, please." Amir looked at Aisha, then Maya. And he smiled. The sirens wailed in the distance, soft at first, then louder as they neared the alley. A blue and white ambulance cut through morning traffic, followed closely by a patrol car. The city didn't pause for emergencies, but the vehicles weaved skillfully through the busy streets, racing against time. In the alley, Maya remained on her knees beside Amir, her hand gripping his tightly. Her other hand gently wiped the sweat from his brow, though the cold had turned it icy. "Just hold on," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Don't go to sleep. Help is almost here." She didn't know who this man was. He was a stranger, possibly homeless, lying injured in a forgotten corner of the city. But none of that mattered. All she saw was a human being, broken, hurting, and alone. She saw what everyone else had ignored. The ambulance arrived with a screech and 2 EMTs jumped out. A tall, serious man with a shaved head and a younger woman with dark eyes and quick hands rushed toward them with a stretcher and medical gear. "What do we have?" The male EMT asked as he knelt beside Amir. Maya stood quickly, stepping back but not far. "He's unresponsive, but there's a pulse, shallow breathing. Hisses. Lips were blue earlier, possible hypothermia. I don't know how long he's been here, but I found him about 10 minutes ago." The EMT nodded. "You're a nurse?" "Yes, night shift at County General. Thank you for staying." That probably saved him. The EMTs worked fast. An oxygen mask was placed over Amir's face. His vitals were checked. Blankets were wrapped around him. They lifted him carefully onto the stretcher, securing his limbs. Maya hovered near the edge, heart pounding. She had seen death before too many times. She had watched people fade in hospital beds, and she had held the hands of the dying. But this felt personal in a way she couldn't explain. As the stretcher was loaded into the ambulance, she stepped forward. "Can I ride with you?" She asked the younger EMT. He hesitated. "Family?" "No, but he shouldn't be alone." The EMT saw something in her eyes and gave a short nod. "Hop in the back." Maya climbed inside and took a seat beside Amir. She held his hand the whole way, murmuring softly, "I don't know who you are, but you're not just another body in the street. You're not invisible. You matter." At the hospital, chaos swirled around the emergency room as usual. Machines beeped. Voices called. FOR charts. Nurses ran down halls with 4 bags swinging in rhythm to their hurried steps. Amir was rushed into Trauma Bay 3. Doctors surrounded him. X-rays, spinal scans, blood tests. The words Maya feared began to emerge. Severe spinal trauma possible. Internal bleeding, risk of organ failure, but he was alive. Just barely. Maya stood outside the trauma room, hands clasped together, praying silently. She hadn't prayed in years, not since. Her brother died of an overdose 5 winters ago, but this man stirred something in her she couldn't ignore. After 20 minutes, a trauma doctor came out, pulling off his gloves. "You brought him in?" "Yes, I found him in an alley. He was freezing." The doctor nodded. "You saved his life. But he's not out of the woods yet. There's spinal damage serious. And some signs of sepsis. We're doing everything we can, but it's going to be a fight." Maya nodded, eyes wet. "Can I see him? Just for a moment." She stepped into the room. Slowly, Amir lay on the hospital bed, pale and still, but no longer alone in the dark. Machines surrounded him. A nasal cannula delivered oxygen. His chest rose and fell, slowly but steadily. His hands were clean now, his clothes replaced with a hospital gown. Maya pulled up a chair. She leaned close and whispered, "You're safe now. I don't know what happened to you. I don't know why no one stopped, but you're here, and I'll be here too." She stayed for hours. Eventually, her phone rang. It was her supervisor, wondering why she hadn't clocked out properly. She gave a short explanation and promised to return the next night. Then she turned her phone off and went back to Amir's bedside. She didn't know his story, but she wanted to. Amir, drifting in and out of consciousness, heard voices in flashes. Oxygen levels rising, vitals stabilizing. Brain activity is responsive, but more than the words, he felt warmth. Not just the heat from the blankets, but something human. Someone was holding his hand. In his dreams, he saw Layla again. She stood by a window, her arms crossed. Her hair was shorter now, like it had been after Aisha's funeral. "You never stopped blaming yourself," she said softly. Amir nodded. "I wasn't ready to forgive you. But I never stopped loving you." He looked away, ashamed. "I left because I couldn't heal with you beside me," she continued. "But that doesn't mean you deserve to suffer like this." Then she was gone, and in her place stood Aisha, small, barefoot, her eyes glowing like lanterns in the dark. "Papa," she said, "it's not your fault." Tears streamed down Amir's cheeks as he whispered, "I miss you." Aisha smiled. "You still have time." The next day, Maya returned. Nurses at the front desk smiled and waved. Word had spread. A man was saved by a stranger who refused to walk away. Maya sat by his side, reading aloud from a book she had brought. She told him stories about her job, her patients, her brother. She asked him questions, even though he couldn't answer. But on the third day, something changed. She was reading quietly when she felt a faint squeeze around her fingers. She looked up. Amir's eyes fluttered open. He blinked, confused. His lips parted, dry and cracked. Maya gasped, "You're awake. You're awake." He tried to speak, but no sound came. She hit the call button, and a nurse rushed in. Over the next few days, Amir regained strength slowly. He couldn't move his legs yet, but he could speak softly, hoarsely. He learned Maya's name. She learned his. They talked about the past, the accident, his daughter, his loss, his wandering. He had never told anyone the whole story before, but now he did. Maya cried. She held his hand tighter. "You don't deserve to disappear," she whispered. "You deserve to be seen." Amir stayed in the hospital for 3 weeks. Social workers visited. The city arranged a temporary housing placement. A physical therapist created a long-term plan. Doctors warned him his mobility might be limited, but not impossible, and Maya was there through it all. One morning, as Amir sat in a wheelchair by the window, watching birds gather on the rooftop, he turned to her. "Why did you stop that day?" She shrugged. wiping tears from her cheek. "Because I saw someone everyone else didn't." He looked down. "I still don't know if I deserve it." "You do," she said firmly. "Everyone does." 6 months later, Amir stood with the help of crutches outside a small community center. He was dressed in clean clothes. His beard was trimmed. His eyes were tired, but alive. He had started volunteering, talking to men and women who lived on the street, sharing his story, helping them find their way to shelters or food banks. And Maya? She was there every week, too, running a small mobile health clinic for those without access to care. Together, they made a quiet difference in a world that still looked the other way too often. But not always, because sometimes. One person stopped. Epilogue: the alley where Amir once lay is still. There, the graffiti remains. The cracked pavement hasn't been repaired, but now, near the wall where he nearly died, there's a small mural dot. It shows a man curled on the ground, his hand reaching out and a woman kneeling beside him, offering hers. Below the image are painted words in soft gold. "He cried out at midnight." The world walked past, but she didn't.